Hello and welcome to this edition of Lion Pride Sports. I'm Neil Fisher. Joining me from the Lindenwood Baseball team, head coach Doug Bletcher. Coach, how you doing?
Doing fine, thank you.
The team is 17-15 on the year. 9 out of the last 10 games they have won. What have you seen from this team during that stretch?
Well, certainly we're finding ourselves, and that's kind of the key thing every single season is just a team being able to find what their identity is, what their strengths are, and we're getting to that point. Certainly the pitching has really come around, the frontline pitching at least, where everybody could find themselves too offensively. I think it takes a little pressure off.
Yeah, looking at the starting pitching staff, to open the season, you had Kastmeyer coming off of the MIAA Freshman Pitcher of the Year, and then you had, of course, Kyle Hentis and Blake Beckman. With Kastmeyer going down, what did it mean that Brody Roach stepped up as a true freshman to fill that role?
Obviously huge. For him to step up as a freshman when we were going to slowly nurture him and bring him along is just everything to our season. As basically, in terms of maintaining the big three, as you're mentioning, it allows us to maintain status quo. When a team feels good about themselves going into a ball game, that they're probably going to get a quality start, I think it takes a lot of pressure off the ball club to perform and just control what they can control.
And thinking about the control, what you can control, the offense right now is rolling, scoring a lot of runs. They've scored 104 runs in this 10-game stretch where they've won 9 of 10. What have you seen from them that you have liked?
Again, just finding themselves and finding their game, and whether they're going to sit there and listen too much to outside forces or influence in terms of how to hit and those type of things. It's always tricky waters every single season with respect to the outside forces affecting what they do, whether it's pitching, whether it's hitting. And again, our hitters have started to find themselves collectively, and everybody's finding their role, what it is that they do well and what it is that they don't do well. So perhaps some of it is our competition that we faced. It's a good timing, but that takes, again, a lot of pressure off our offense going forward. And I'm really appreciative of this streak just for that sense that you know everybody's got a good feeling about themselves.
In the last series against Fort Hays, the offense kind of boomed and showed what they can do in all categories. Bryce Beckman had a few stolen bases. Ryan Sosnowski and Mitchell Krebs laid down bunts for hits. A few hit and runs were in the works with Colby Schulte, and of course a couple home runs from a few different people. What does it mean to see just a very versatile offense going into a big stretch for the team?
It's huge, and you know there's so many more games to go, and you're always trying to think about the last game of the season for our ball club to be able to play their best game of the season. So the season, in a sense, works in reverse, and every single game, such as you mentioned, all these little parts that are working for us at this point in time, still collectively is an effort towards playing our best game, the last game of the year. So there's still more to be had. We can't get too caught up in what we're doing right, in the sense that we've got to be able to realize that we still have weaknesses that we have, that are there, they're out there. We need to address them, identify them, and then to work on that part of our game. So if there's 2 guys that are doing a great job drag bunting, well, there's 7 more guys that perhaps need to get on board that type of situation. We can't lose sight of the tournament of the NCAAs to be able to play our best game, the last game of the year. So you're always happy with what's happening out on the field when it is successful, but in the context of the entire season, is it successful meeting against elite competition day in and day out, back to back to back to back games such as what we get presented with in the NCAA playoffs.
And that's what it's going to be this next few weeks. You have a long stretch of very good teams in the MIAA. You currently sit 3rd, though, in the standings, which has to be nice to see. So you're at the top with Missouri Southern and Central Missouri and Central Oklahoma. But going into this stretch of you're at home against Central Oklahoma, then you go on the road to face Central Missouri in a weekend series, and the team didn't do that last year. So What is that going to be? What's the atmosphere going to be like in Warrensburg for that series?
It is always an awesome atmosphere, and it's one that the coach simply doesn't need to prepare his team mentally for in terms of psyche. I don't need to pick up anything and throw it across the locker room and start slamming or screaming or anything of that nature. Not that I would ever do that anyway, but to be able to sit back and just monitor and watch your players perform in those type of atmospheres is an awesome experience as a coach. Certainly someone who has done a lot of years, whether it's UCO at home, whether it's UCM on the road, to be able to sit back and say, all right, here's our work, here's our body of work, we're basically taking a test. And now we're going to be graded at the end of the game. And so that's what these two games represent. Just what have you been doing in the previous 30 games? Well, this is what we have. And then we get to assess where we're at the conclusion of both these series, and then to further make adjustments to accomplish our end goals.
In 2017, you went on the magnificent run. You won the MIAA conference tournament, you won the regional, and then you went on to Texas to play in the Division II World Series. In that season, you guys lost a midweek game against Lindenwood Belleville, and this season there was a midweek loss against UMSL, and now the team has gone on a run. It's kind of similar if you look at it in a way. What have you noticed from that team in 2017 to this team now in 2019?
Well, that we failed often early in both seasons, and somewhere in both seasons we were about 500 at the midway point, give or take, and then started to get on that roll, such as you're referring to. Losing to, whether it's an NAIA ball club, school rival, I don't even know what you call Lindenwood Belleville, but then UMSL, I mean, it is humiliating, and really, you just, it happens. It is what it is. You just have to say, okay, I guess it can't get any worse. It's like having a 4-strikeout day. It's like you can only go up, and it's really, you can take an optimistic viewpoint from that point on, and it's just very beneficial. So yes, I think that's an interesting correlation that you've made. Both teams are teams that we have to take out, did not, but we were able to rebound for it. Both years, though, whether it's 2017, 2019, have a very powerful label identity, and that is resiliency. So we have reached the lows in both years, and now we're be able to get up off the floor and fight again.
So what are the highs, do you think, for the rest of the season with 5 more series to go for this Lindenwood program?
Not to put the pressure on any one segment of the game, but if we defend well and support that pitching, I mean, that's certainly always going to be a key ingredient. 2017, there were some really fantastic offensive numbers, but it was the pitching that allowed it to happen and allowed it to flourish, because there are going to be, even when you have an offensive explosion, many times it happens later in the game when you just kept the pressure on, or was hanging on through the game, playing well defensively, pitchers making big-time pitches, getting out of jams, and allowing the offense to come back on out repeatedly and get another opportunity. So it's pretty exciting for it all to unfold in front of me, very similar to 2017. And I can't wait to get started.
At the beginning of the year, though, against Washburn in the first series, won the first 2 and then dropped the last one, and kind of in a bad way. Did you see after that game that you would be 11-7 in conference at this point?
Oh, gosh. Great question. In 45 years, every year is unique to itself. Yes, there's so many commonalities over these 45 years, and you would think certainly I could see ourselves getting on a run. It's not only just school ball, but it's summer ball, where we've made great runs to series and things of that nature, and supposedly unexpected. So I again, it all comes back down to, will your team find themselves, fight through adversity, get up off the floor, and handle criticism, just to negotiate all that, have the maturity to sit there and ride out those highs and lows. Anything's possible. And so I don't discount it ever to have a situation like what you say with Washburn. I myself learned a lot in that last game about what teams are willing to do to sit there and win, and that we can't be caught with our hands in the cookie jar, I'll say it that way, and allow somebody out-intensity us. That was a little surprising from that standpoint. That's what I really remembered from that game right there. And it started from the coaching staff. We allowed them to out-intensity us, and I'm going to try to make sure that doesn't happen again.
And one quick remark, you guys are transferring from the MIAA to the GLVC next season. What do you look forward to in that transfer?
Don't discount the GLVC. I'm going to make sure that we, again, don't devalue our opponents that we're going to face. I'm excited for it for one standpoint only, really, and that is, it'd be nice not to travel 6,050 miles at the beginning of the season for regular season, not counting our Arkadelphia trip that we added on. Next year we have 1,800 miles that we're to drive during the regular season. That's a big difference. Keep you guys in the classroom, on campus more often. Certainly we'll save a little bit of money and concentrate on what we do best, and that's play baseball. So I think when we have more local games, that's going to be the big benefit from going from the MIAA to the GLVC, is simply be home more often. Next year's schedule, we open up with 24 consecutive home games.
Thank you, Coach. Coming up on Lion Pride Sports, we'll continue to discuss with Coach Doug Bletcher of the Lindenwood Baseball team about what the lineup looks like going into the weekend against University of Central Oklahoma. That's next on Lion Pride Sports.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Welcome back to this episode of Lion Pride Sports. I'm Neil Fisher. Again here with Coach Bletcher of the Lindenwood Baseball team. We just discussed what's going on this year and what's looking forward to the future. But now I want to get into the lineup. It's kind of, you've kind of set the lineup for the rest of the season, haven't you?
Pretty much so.
You have.
It's always a work in progress.
Was it a lot easier this year than last year's team to create one lineup for the remainder and the majority of the season?
I really, that's a great question. I really don't know. It seems like every year is a challenge. To me, the more circular the lineup can get anyway, the better off you're going to be, meaning you're adaptable to whether you're leading off, you're the number 2 hitter, you're the number 3 hitter, and every team needs to get into that mode. It's really a team effort. It's for the team. Maybe you can get more power if you always look mid-in, for instance, if you're a power hitter on the early counts. But if the high percentage play is to go the other way and get on base, you're the leadoff batter of the inning, percentage-wise for the team offensively, that's the way we want to go. Therefore, you basically have a revolving circular lineup when you're playing at your best. You're not only a number 4 hitter, but you're a leadoff hitter, you're a number 2 hitter, you're a number 3 hitter, and that's when the offense works best. So We certainly are leaning to this vertical lineup, 1 through 9, very similar each and every day. Why break something that's not broken? But again, in the context of the final game of the year, are you playing your best ball at that point in time? It's always something you have to take a very subjective look at, introspective look at, all of us, on how we can help the team the best way. So circular lineup versus vertical.
And by circular, do you mean that you have some speed guys in the beginning and then some power hitters, gap-to-gap hitters in the middle, and then back to kind of speed on-base percentage guys at the end?
Well, certainly, yes, in terms of your vertical lineup, but then even if you didn't have speed and you happen to be leading off an inning, you're still, which the power hitters do a good job of maybe shrinking the zone to maybe about a 3-ball zone as opposed to a 5-ball zone, for instance, with when they're not in advantage counts. But they would just basically take on leadoff type attributes, those strengths that leadoff hitters, for instance, like Colby Schulte, who fouls balls off right and left and gets the pitch count up from the very first AB on. He's really done a great job there. He was a great fit for the leadoff position, but he was number 9 at the beginning of the year, so we had to adjust to that point. Same thing with Krebs. He works the count very well. Certainly those guys are the catalyst for us getting into the bullpen. They do set the tone. But there's no reason why DJ Miller, yourself, Stevens can't do the same when leading off an inning. So maybe you don't straight still with the best of them throughout the country, but you could certainly be opportunistic in terms of angle down, seeing a 90 that's available to you, and take that second base bag, maybe first or third, certainly a tag play. But bottom line, it's just basically get them on, get them over, get them in, and being a part of that cog in the wheel.
Well, and that's one thing I wanted to hit on is Colby did bat 9th. Myself, I batted in the 6th hole. The lineup in the very first game of the season at Lee was a lot different than what it looks like right now. Same kind of players in the lineup, just mixed around in a different order, and the order is working right now. And Colby Schulte does a great job of seeing a lot of pitches and battling, and a great fastball hitter, can drive the ball to right field, and we noticed it this weekend at Fort Hays, can also have some power to left field. What's been most impressive have you seen him grow? Because in the fall, he kind of had some struggles, and he didn't really know how to deal with it at the beginning. And now he's kind of matured into this role where, yeah, I'm the leadoff hitter. I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to beat him right away and get our team on the board.
Isn't that true, boy? Very evident. It's been an amazing transformation for not only for Colby, but for the team as well. Add to that, when he works the pitch count up, everybody else is getting more ABs. So we know we got to get in sync when we're in the on-deck circle in the hole, and hopefully on the bench as well, and starting our AB from the bench. And when he gets those 11, 12 pitch at-bats, I mean, those are 12 pitches that we have for benefit for our on-deck guys in the hole and what have you. That's pretty amazing. So him finding himself, as we've talked about in the previous segment, what everybody needs to do, has changed our season. I think it has a transformation to the pitching staff to trust the defense and not to try to strike everybody on out. So what's happened? Our walks have dramatically decreased. What did we have the past weekend? 3 in 3 games?
Yeah, I believe it was like 3 or 4 out of the whole pitching
in 3
staff.
games. That's pretty amazing and pretty tough to do, especially at the amateur level, but even for the Cardinals, as we've seen in the past, it's difficult for them too. So those are amazing numbers, but that comes from trust. That comes from confidence, and Colby Schulte, not just offensively but defensively, has really thrown us a very powerful confidence builder, and it can't be understated.
And then I want to go to the 3 hole. DJ Miller last season batted in the 1-2 spot with Wes Stegner, kind of mixed it up right there. But now he's in the 3 hole. What has been the transformation from his game last season to this season? Because in the fall he had totaled his home runs that he hit in the spring of last year.
What a talent. And for DJ, just basically getting his pitch is really, whether it was last year or this year, I think he does it more often this year. He takes advantage of it. And when we thought about putting him in the 3-hole, we really didn't have a magical 3-hole person to begin with, I have to admit. And we didn't know how this was going to work. But he certainly is maximizing his opportunities in terms of taking advantage of getting his pitch more often than he did last year. He didn't have a bad season last year, but certainly not what he could have done. And certainly this year he is having a great season. And offensively and defensively, we need this guy to perform. So it's exciting for us that he is.
And then after DJ, you have Stevens, myself, Sosnowski, and Beckman, all who have power and all who have shown it this season. What does it mean to not just the lineup, but to see other guys react to how we handle the pitches that were dealt, and to see just a lot of pitches and see balls hit hard?
And as you said, for those guys to be able to handle tough situations and get through it and come back and get ready to leave their bat in the dugout, take their leather out to the field, those type of things, show their teammates that they're still engaged in the ball game. There's no question that 3 through 6, certainly 3 through 7, when you add Beckman, they're going to pitch those guys differently, tougher. And that is the ball game. I mean, there's no question that they don't pitch 1, 2, 8, 9 like they pitch those guys. And so it's a different set of rules of engagement, if you will, for those guys to be able to negotiate those troubled waters. They handling the 0 for 4s, handling 4 or 5 LOBs. I mean, this is just another day at the office in the sport of baseball at the highest level. It's just got to be able to handle all those things. So DJ, yourself, Sosnowski, Beckman, maybe he's been able, in the 7-hole, been able to find himself just to kind of maybe ease it up a little bit 3 through 6 in his situation. So that I think he has benefited by being in the 7-hole to find himself.
And then you look at the 8-9 hole, you have a guy who's matching his walks per strikeouts. He's almost got 1 for 1 in each category. I believe it's somewhere around 26. He's at the top of the MIAA standings in walks, and Ryan Vinny. And then you have Cal Nowak, who has recently kind of taken over the job in left field, if you will. What's it mean to have a guy who gets on base in that 8-hole, and then a guy who has speed in that 9-hole, and then flip the order around?
Considering that both our 1 and 2 hitters do hit and are clutch hitters, and they're able to use their hands freely enough to sit there and expose holes that are presented to them, opportunities that are presented to them, it's huge having those 2 guys get on base. And as you said, maybe Vinny's batting average isn't where he wants it to be. It'll be there in the end. But boy, since the Umsel game, he has been incredible. So most of all of his on bases has happened since then, even though his batting average hasn't been where he's wanted it. Huge for our offense. 1 through 9. Again, if we can get to that circular lineup again, that's going to be the key, because yourself, Stevens, Miller, Sosnowski, Beckman can also be the catalyst and set the table for others.
And then that's the lineup. You look into the bullpen, it's kind of like 3 guys right now have put themselves out there as the driving forces, and Eric Hipp has done a phenomenal job for this ball club. He's got one of the lowest ERAs in the MIAA this season. What does it mean to have that leadership from him to go out there in any situation and shut the door?
It's everything, and he may not be the most verbal leader around, but wow, his actions are very powerful. And then as you being part of the clubhouse meeting when we were trying to reference his early days, him not able to get out on the field. So not only a leader and somebody who's executing at the highest level this year, but how he got there. That's key too. So when we're trying to fight through adversity and teach our younger players, 21 first-year players on the ball club, this is what you do through adversity. This guy has faced adversity like no other. And that's not a Lindenwood saying, that's a baseball saying there. He has spent 4 years in this program getting to this point. In fact, maybe I should have played him a lot more than I did last year, but he is really executing at a high level, been there, done that, consummate veteran leadership.
That's great, Coach. Thank you. That's Coach Doug Bletcher of the Lindenwood Baseball team. Catch them the weekend of April 5th at home at Lubrock Sports Complex against the University of Central Oklahoma. That will do it for this episode of Lion Pride Sports. I'm Neil Fisher. Thanks for watching.